My name is Nathan Bauma, and I'd like to welcome you here this afternoon. And I understand not just here in Atlanta, but we have a lot of people that are virtually connected from afar across the country that are tuning in. Connectivity great from a live standpoint. All the way from East Coast, the Gulf of Mexico, and I even hear rumor that there's somebody connected way up in northern Wisconsin this afternoon dialed in. I am the Vice President of Solutions Engineering. I forgot to advance here. For the Eco Buildings business here in the US. I actually have a pretty awesome job. Not that it's easy and not that it's stress-free, but it's rewarding. It's fulfilling because my job actually lines up with my core values and beliefs. You see, every day I get the opportunity to lead a group of incredibly brilliant and passionate folks whose one sole purpose is to help our partners and our customers see and feel an improved experience in our products and offers. While their titles may be quite diverse, such as educational services and discovery engineering, application engineering, systems engineering, product quality, and level 2 customer support, we call on them not just to execute their skill sets, but also play an aligned role, providing adaptability, agility, and flexibility to make sure that how we utilize them, and how do we utilize them? All the way from pre-launch product release support, all the training that happens in the United States, the complex engineering for new customer projects, as well as the really big solutioneering lift that we have when we try and do migration from some of our mature legacy product lines to the new platform that we have today. We depend on those guys to help all of our teams exceed your expectations. You know, with 30 years, almost 30 years, not quite as old as someone here in the front, of building automation experience, there are two key fundamentals that I've come to adopt and own, and they're principles I think that are steadfast, and I'm really proud that at Schneider Electric, we also embrace them. And one is that no two customers or facilities are ever exactly the same. And the second is that things change. Facilities and workplace environments change. Customers' expectations and needs change because they evolve. Those two issues, they create an enormous burden on companies to come up with those attributes that I mentioned earlier: agility, adaptability, and creativity, to make sure that we don't just meet ever-changing needs, but we exceed them. Little bit of preparation for you. I like to always include, think of them as Nate hashtags, a couple of embedded terms that the audience can take with them that we leverage throughout. So think and listen for words like partnership, experience, ROI, pivot, and engaging. One in particular that I'd like to have a little fun with today is the word hyper. When we first set out on this journey to do this presentation, I had two wonderful marketing coaches. I can't say their names, but one reminds me or sounds like Shashley, and the other one is Hallison, wherever she's at. And when I asked them and saw the word hyper efficient, I challenged it because that's what I do in life. And I said, why can't we just use very, ultra, mega? And they said, absolutely not. You have to use this. Well, whenever you provoke me, then I have to have a little fun with those things. So I meant to be extremely sarcastic today with that. And I told Jim, hyper is what he has to adopt later today. But you know, before I got too far on with the sarcasm, I went to Google and I looked up the definition of hyper. And the first few words that came out were over, beyond, above, nothing big. But then I saw this really cool definition after it. Excessively above normal. Maybe I shouldn't be such a smart aleck now. And tell you what, when we're done with the presentation, you make the call to see if marketing wasn't more genius than I gave them credit for. Second, I'd like you guys all to take just a second, big breath in, big breath out. clear just that much of your mental palette for me this afternoon, I'd like to pivot you just a little bit and see if I can inject some different ideas around buildings that might just have you think differently. Later on, to give you guys a mental break, or I'll call it an eliminate break from me, I'm going to bring up one of our amazing partner customers, Mark Faber from AEG. Mark has extensive knowledge and experience with hyper dynamic environments that are ever changing. They're complex. And also, he has a good understanding of the partnerships that it takes to manage them successfully. Our vision is about reinventing buildings. It's about delivering a whole new level of value that is both deep and broad. It kind of covers 4 key areas. First, we help create buildings that are more engaging. Obviously, buildings that have to provide a level of comfort to their occupants, but an environment that can help those occupants be more productive. And ultimately, turn those and convert those environments into an engaging, interactive workplace that's kind of empowering to the people that work there every day. Then, we enable new levels of hyper-efficiency. Those extended efficiencies that go well above and beyond the traditional that you get from building automation savings. And they're supercharged at that point with real-time connectivity, big data, and the analytics that work together to drive optimization. But not just building automation optimization. Optimization that applies to the productivity of the people that work there. We also help create sustainable buildings. Buildings that have an extremely small carbon footprint, and those that leverage the optimization and energy savings that often gets overlooked in the 30 to 50% range. Finally, we help create simple buildings. They're easier, they're faster, they're less expensive to deploy, and they're far more cost-effective to grow and expand to scale. This provides a greater value to who? To you, the customers, the partners, as well as all stakeholders that are in the value chain. I truly believe that buildings and workplace environments, they can empower people to do great things. Why do I say that? That sounds marketing, right? It's not. I've seen it, first person, firsthand I've seen it. We're evolving and transforming buildings and environments today so that thinkers can think smarter. Why? Because we create a much better envelope of focus for them. Employees can work more effectively and efficiently, providing them a greater personal achievement, as well as employer ROI on those employees that they invested in. If you're like me, and you get a paycheck that's signed by somebody other than, or an allowance weekly maybe, somebody other than your spouse, then welcome to the commercial workforce. And we spend most of our time inside of commercial buildings. People by far are the largest expense and the largest investment per square foot in a commercial office building. They account for a staggering 90% of a building's expenses. Attracting, engaging that talent, and keeping it is one of our biggest opportunities today. A comfortable work environment, it matters to employees. It matters to their level of engagement, and therefore it also matters to their productivity that they produce. You realize, and this just drives me nuts, that 35% of sick leave can simply be attributed to poor airflow turnover and ventilation in a building. That's ridiculous. I'm going to throw you guys out a couple of Post-it notes with some tacks. This is one I want you to tack up on your board, or a parking space I think we have in some of our leadership meetings. And we're going to circle back to that one point later. When we look at hotels today, almost half of the complaints come from customer room issues. It's too hot, it's too cold. My issue or my concern wasn't resolved right, or it wasn't resolved timely. This takes a significant impact. We do not want people to be unhappy, right? It can impact, according to that slide, by 11% in customer appeal. But I'll tell you what, last week I was reading something on Inc.com, and Andrew Thomas has a new article and a new study put out that says it's actually 40 positive experience reviews required to overcome one negative experience review. Providing an optimized environment where people can be more productive while providing them an awesome, engaging experience is where we want to take this. Here's a pivot thought, and I got to be careful with these because you can really horn off some people. If 90% of the cost of a commercial office is people, where's the rest of it? Only 8 to 9% is rent, and only 1 to 2% is utilities. With our historical focus and weighted effort on building automation and energy savings, which are critically important, have we also missed an enormous ROI that's been sitting right in front of us? Let's take a look at a real-world example of what we can do with this. So a large financial institution putting together a new campus, 818,000 square feet, 151,000 of shared office space inside of that for 5,000 employees. Their objective was really around human assets. It was to create two objectives. One, an engaging workplace that attracts and retains millennials. You know, a fact, 38% of millennials today leave their current job within 2 years, unless they figure out a way that they see the engagement in their environment and hook into it. Their second objective was driving employee productivity. And how'd they want to do that? I don't know if anybody here, I think somebody mentioned it today, JPT's got kids, and they all have phones. Let's give them real-time environmental information that's on their phone, that they can interact with their workspace from their phone. So let's put it all at their fingertips, let them choose how they want their environment to be. So guess what? They decided on Workplace Advisor. Using Workplace Advisor, they have a flex desk policy where that 151,000 square feet is open. And I, from my cell phone, can choose where I want to work, what desk is mine today, what I want the environmental conditions to be. That sounds wild, right? Because historically, when we look at large open office spaces, we can't hone in on these 4 seats right here. But today we can. From selecting that desk location to choosing an open office and other relevant pieces of information about the building. What else would be relevant about a building today that could affect productivity? For instance, wouldn't it be better to know that before I hop up out of my desk and run down to the cafeteria that the line is 15 minutes long? And with some predictive analytics, I know that if I wait another 10 minutes, that line won't even be there. I don't know about you, but the last darn thing I ever want to do, you can ask my wife, is stand in line for anything and be unproductive. I will do extremes in scheduling to make sure I'm not in a line ever. So what was the result after deploying Workplace Advisor? First phase, real simple. They saved 5 minutes per employee per day. Wow, Nate, that's really impressive, 5 whole minutes. But it is, let's look deeper. 5 minutes a day equates to 20 hours in a year's time. Very conservatively estimated, 20 hours equates to what? About $1,000 of raw cost per employee. Conservative estimate times 5,000 employees is $5 million for 5 minutes. I don't know about you, that's an ROI if I was a building owner or building manager I'd like to pursue. Let's take a closer look at EcoStruxure Workplace Advisor. This solution that allowed these managers in that facility to make data-driven decisions, to change their environment and allow the employees to be very selective and engaged with how they use their facility that they work at. With occupancy analytics, it's very fast and easy to see assets that might not be optimized or used. They include desks and offices and meeting rooms and other amenities that can be reallocated based on real data, both historic and trend data that comes forward. Dynamically changing that layout of that office so that it's absolutely optimized for effective use and productive use is no longer a thing of hunches or erroneous opinions from managers. We will provide employees the visibility of real-time selection with real-time data. You then can enhance the well-being of the occupants in that building. Traditionally, we, again, monitor temperature, humidity, CO2 levels, air quality, but we do it on an aggregate gross scale as opposed to a unique section of that space scale. Now we can do that. We can also monitor noise and odor. These two things are often flagged as nuisance issues when people are looking at open or shared office space type environments. The other thing that's really cool, and I can't wait, I know we've done a couple of Schneider facilities now, I'm dying for it to go into Dallas. Whenever I go to the Dallas office, I have to go wait for, I can't even remember her name, the front desk receptionist, or someone who might have a current map today of where in the heck people sit in that building before I go wander around aimlessly and then just land in Jim's office and complain about it. With the occupant application on your phone, you know real time where your colleagues are at. You know what meeting rooms are where, what they're called. It's kind of like your own built-in Google Maps, but for a facility. Talk about avoiding occupant and visitor frustration. Okay, here's the cool part. We're going to take that tack back, but utilizing any of the EcoStruxure portfolio applications that you have here. So Workplace Advisor, Building Advisor, Guest Room Expert, and Building Operation. The results are incredibly efficient and more productive workplaces. Those solutions can help an organization reduce productivity leakage by 15%. Anybody want to do that math again on the 5 minutes per day? That's 1%. And we believe that there's another 14 to get out of it. We can reduce the number of environmental complaints by 33% and cut HVAC system faults in half. So how do we leverage buildings to get that additional hyper efficiency? Here's a little secret. Folks, there are diamonds and gold. Diamonds and gold from an operational cost savings perspective that's hidden away in the event data that archives in mountains inside of your BMS system trend logs and events every day. In fact, you probably have more today in some big database archive than you've ever even looked at. Tap into that data. Leverage it. And leverage the power of IoT and those big algorithmic analytics and convert that into raw savings. Those costs have been sitting there from an operational perspective that could have been avoided forever, and they're right under your nose. If you don't know Justin Lavoie, I don't know if he's in the room. No. Hey, there he is right there, that good-looking guy. Please do me a favor and seek him out. Ask him for help in better understanding how you can go identify those diamonds and gold that sit in your data that you already have. Second, when you grab his arm, ask him to share with you the power and the effectiveness of real-time system performance monitoring and connection from the Schneider Electric Service Bureau. Several years ago, as we were laying out the framework for the service offering, one of our superheroes from North Carolina, Mark Lasaint, was sharing his vision with me, and it really impacted me. And he said, once a customer has real-time connection and performance monitoring from our service bureau, by the time they know they need service from Schneider Electric, we or our partner will have already called them. "75% of a building's life cycle costs are in maintenance and operations. You realize that 40% of that workforce that does service and maintenance are expected to retire by 2020. Gone are the days of paper-based work orders and clipboards. This new generation workforce, what they want is maintenance, management, and service real-time and on my phone. Good news, two of them, one I'll tell you now, one later. EcoStruxure hasn't been just built to be compatible with mobile, it's been built to be optimized on it. So if I set a tablet next to a workstation screen, they'll both look good, but it's gonna look better on the mobile. Up to 45% of energy that's used by an HVAC system is wasted due to faults. And as much as 40% of workspaces that we talked about earlier go non-optimized or ineffective for that office and its production staff. If you're a building manager, I'd bet those keep you up at night. Tell you what, I'll give you that eliminate break now, and we're gonna bring up someone who knows a lot about keeping facilities hyper-efficient. I would like to invite Mark Faber, Senior Vice President for AEG, to join us on the stage and share some of his feedback and maybe answer some questions as well. Mark,
Thank you, Nate. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much for taking time. I know how busy you are. I know we're supposed to be digital, but I did print out a list of questions. We surveyed a few select people in the audience to get some questions earlier. So first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what is this AEG?
I'm Mark Faber, Senior Vice President, Global Partnerships with AEG. AEG is Anschutz Entertainment Group. It's not AIG, which we're commonly referred to, AEG. Phil Anschutz is our owner. The holding company is the Anschutz Corp. Based in Denver. Matt Anktel, my colleague, is here and had a great session earlier today talking about the Anschutz Corp. Phil Anschutz bought the Los Angeles Kings hockey team out of bankruptcy from Bruce McNall back in the mid-90s. From there, he privately financed Staples Center, which is the leading entertainment venue in the world, back in 1999 for about $425 million is what I recall. Privately financed again, which is critical and key. And we currently have 4 teams that play in that building. So we have the Los Angeles Kings, obviously. Mr. Anschutz owns a portion of the Lakers, and thank goodness LeBron James came to the Lakers because Showtime is now back in that building. We have the Los Angeles Clippers, and we also have the Sparks, the WNBA team. So we have about 250 events in that building on an annual basis. From there, we've now grown and evolved to having a presence of 120 plus properties, sports and entertainment properties globally, over 5 continents. I've been with the company about 13 years. So when I joined 13 years ago, we had about 3,000 employees. To date, we have about 28,000 plus.
Wow.
So it's been a great growth. I joined the company with our Sprint Center project. I was fortunate to be the first boots on the ground with that project, and I joined May of '05. And that was a public-private partnership with the city of Kansas City to help redevelop and revitalize downtown. And so we built Sprint Center, for about $275 million back then, and it was an economic engine and catalyst for revitalization. And then when we decided to build an arena in Las Vegas, I raised my hand and said, can I go to Las Vegas? Tired of the snow and the sleet in Kansas City. I actually grew up in Kansas City, so I can talk about it like that. But I wanted to be a part of really being in the entertainment capital of the world. And so we formed a joint venture with MGM Resorts. Bill Ham is here representing MGM Resorts. And I'm in our global partnerships division. So as a part of that, we have several verticals. We have teams, as I mentioned earlier. We have facilities throughout the world. We have AEG Presents, which is our live entertainment group that books tours, as also runs clubs and theaters. We have real estate, and we have global partnerships. And so a colleague of mine over in Europe actually initially met with Schneider Electric and just did an overview about what we were doing in the world, and Schneider expressed interest in the Las Vegas project. Orlando Perez is down here and spearheaded that, so we've got 3 key people that were a part of that project, and so we formed a joint venture with MGM Resorts. We were looking to develop a new arena in Las Vegas. MGM Grand Garden Arena had been opened in 1993, and it hosted some prolific events. But MGM saw a need for a new building, and we had always been trying to get an arena in Las Vegas, and so we developed T-Mobile Arena, which opened April of 2016. So my role, and again, I was the first with AEG, my role is that MGM manages and operates the building. Our role at AEG is to go out and develop partnerships, and you use the term partnerships. And so the Schneider Electric partnership developed out of that, and we believe in a mutual investment philosophy. Usually if you have a one-way, relationship with a company, it doesn't last too long. And so we develop mutually beneficial partnerships, and the beauty with the Schneider Electric one was it was early enough in the design and the construction phase that we could have Schneider Electric be actively engaged and involved in the system integration for the building, as opposed to coming in 5 years, say, after we're open, and the efficiencies aren't the same. Obviously, the investment levels would be different. And so not only did we develop that partnership in Las Vegas, but then we've been able to take that partnership with Schneider and then work on it globally and expand, whether there's an MGM Resorts project, whether there's an AEG project. Globally, we've been able to expand that partnership so that we can have system integration throughout the world.
Oh, that's cool. What does a typical day or a short period of time look like for you guys if it's that dynamic of an environment?
Well, we don't have any 2 days that are alike, no question about it. We have a hyper-dynamic environment, like you might see. Hyper-dynamic environment. And I have a video here I'd like to show you that gives you a little sample of what our environment's like.
Awesome. So that's our
hyper-dynamic environment. And on that particular video, if I recall, the first one was Jay-Z concert, which was huge undertaking for our building on his setup and his boards that he had there. We then rolled into PBR World Finals, which essentially is the Super Bowl of professional bull riders, which we actually just had in Vegas Wednesday through Sunday. And then we roll into, obviously you see the hockey ice going down as well. That's a really good idea about what we do in a hyperdynamic environment. And I haven't said EcoStruxure. EcoStruxure is very important. Say that every 2 minutes, but EcoStruxure. So for us, for example, this fall, and that was last year, but for this fall, over a 3-week period, we had Triple G Canelo 2, which was the fight of the year rematch. We had the Vegas Golden Knights hockey team regular season home opener. And of course, they played in the Stanley Cup final for those of you that follow hockey, and in their expansion year, their first year, went to the Stanley Cup final. Unfortunately not beating the Washington Capitals, but we were excited to host Stanley Cup championship final in our first year of the team. And then we had UFC 229, which featured Conor McGregor and Khabib, which was their second biggest UFC event to date from a gate and a pay-per-view. It was phenomenal. And then we had the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James preseason game versus the Golden State Warriors. So in a 3-week period, we have world-class events, and we have to be able to be dynamic and, to your point, I mean, hyper-efficient in what we do, and we have changeovers, conversions, and we have to make sure that our building is operating at the top efficiency. We have ongoing maintenance in the building. We have ongoing cleaning in the building. We have ongoing tours in the building. We have VIP tours. And we have ongoing ice maintenance as well. Because you have the floor stays down, the ice stays down the entire season, and we cover it, take it off, and then you have ongoing ice maintenance. So our environment certainly is hyper-dynamic.
Wow. Well, in the areas of hyper-efficiency, when it relates to EcoStruxure, as well as our partnership, where do we provide you the most value?
Well, in the building management system, Schneider Electric's BMS is critically important to what we're trying to do. And as you look at what our world is like on a daily basis, we're either in an event or we're in and out of an event. So we have to be able to be efficient through the event process, and the BMS helps us, and Schneider creates modes for us as a part of that efficiency. So we're currently in ice mode. We came out of PBR World Finals on Sunday. We've got to get the tons of dirt out. We have to take the boards off the ice, clean up the ice, and they play a game tomorrow night. So we're currently in ice mode. So in ice mode, we're going to be about anywhere between 60 to 64 degrees, and then day of game will be about 60 degrees. So the BMS is the automated system that Jean-Pascal was talking about earlier, JPT is that helps us as a building get these events as far as what we're trying to accomplish from an efficiency ready to go. And so that ice mode is at 60 degrees, and then we open doors. And depending on, if you have an hour and a half before an event, you have to plan accordingly for the people that are coming into that event. So we may have 5,000 people at the doors ready to come in that are ardent hockey fans, right? But then we have to plan, we're going to have 18,000 plus bodies in our building, so the body heat is going to obviously raise that temperature. And so our system has to be able to manage that. And then you have the expulsion of CO2. And so we have to bring in fresh air at the same time. And it's an exact science. And our team of operation and engineers, obviously working with the BMS, are really critical. And those are the people that really deserve all the credit.
Wow, that's awesome. You guys are the first LEED Gold facility from an entertainment and sports complex there in Las Vegas. Obviously, this creates an enormous responsibility that's on your shoulders about constantly being vigilant for maintaining those energy solutions. What role does your partnership with us play in that? Are we participating actively in that?
It's ongoing, and again, it's critical, the partnership that we have there. By the collection of data, we have the ability to work with you on developing modes. So I mentioned ice mode before. And so now we have, what we're going to have is an economized mode, for example. We'll have a normal mode in the BMS. We'll have a concert sporting events mode. So think about in a pre-cool mode if we have to do a quick change for hockey. So think about another event where we might have a concert and the artist, let's say it's John Bon Jovi. And so, Bon Jovi's still touring. And so Mr. Bon Jovi likes to have the temperature at a certain level that may be a little higher than some other artists. And so we have the system in place so that if he requests that the air handlers are shut off, for example, an hour before the show, in order to get that temperature up, we've got the system to do that. Now, of course, we're the ones that get the complaints from people that get warm, and it's not our fault, but we want to accommodate the artist. And it's the same thing for sporting events. I mean, we have college basketball, we have pro basketball. Our building is designed to host any type of event that you can imagine in the sports phase, whether it's, on one side of the building, we're spec'd for hockey, obviously, the other side, we're spec'd for basketball. And eventually, we'd like to obviously host an NBA team.
So really, when John Bon Jovi comes, you just need to also sell it as a hot yoga class.
Yeah, exactly.
As the Internet of Things has become more mainstream and now really matured here, how have connected devices impacted and improved your workflow for you and your team?
Well, the IoT is important, and I know that JPT talked about that earlier today. For us, it's a communication strategy that's essential, and that's where that comes into play. Instead of having our team of engineers sitting at a desk using a desktop computer, we're now using iPads as a part of that, and I know you mentioned that earlier, but you have that iPad technology, right? And so for us to be able to walk around the building and have the iPad technology and work in real time where we need to, right, enhances what we can do as building operators and management of the system in conjunction with the BMS. And then what it also means is that we can work on that system where there's internet anywhere in the world. So if we have some people that are traveling and they want to work on the system from a communication standpoint or whatever that might be, then we can do that, obviously, and the technology has just played a critical role in that.
That's cool. Well, besides the fact that that was a Pelco camera, by the way, that we saw the video recording of, I think Orlando installed it himself.
That's right.
Do you have any closing remarks or advice for the owners and building managers that are here today?
Well, it's obviously we're really pleased with the partnership with Schneider Electric, with you and Schneider Electric. It's been critical for our success. I mean, recently Billboard named us the top arena in the world. Wow. And there's a lot of stakeholders and there's a lot of partners that help make that happen. And obviously Schneider Electric is a key partner and a key stakeholder for us in the venue. When you design a venue, when you project a venue, when you hope it's going to be what you think it's going to be, you have a certain amount of assumptions and projections that go with that. And so we had a pro forma for this building that said we'll do 90 to 100 events a year. That's not inclusive of NHL or NBA. So the building has to stand on its own with 90 to 100 events. Obviously, we were fortunate to get NHL, but when you do a pro forma like that and you know what events you're going to go after, or you want to have, but you don't know if you're going to get, you have to have a certain set of assumptions. And so initially we had a certain set of assumptions on that, and obviously Schneider Electric was a part of that. We knew we'd have some, preseason hockey with the Kings, obviously with Mr. Anschutz owning the Kings, and the Kings have played at the Grand Garden Arena at MGM and move over. We knew we'd have NHL hockey preseason. We knew that we'd have the Lakers continue to play preseason games, and they'd move over to T-Mobile Arena. We knew that we'd have tours that would, world-class tours that would route through the building and or we would go out and get and acquire, right? So whether it's the killers who are local to Las Vegas to open the building, or convince Guns N' Roses to come out of retirement and play our arena, the first arena in 23 years, or whatever those events are, you have those assumptions. Well, we're 2.5 years now into the building, and so the modeling that we had before, we now have actual data. And the beauty is then we aggregate the data with Schneider Electric and utilizing that in the BMS. And so now we have actual time, real-time information that's continuing to evolve as we have more events. And that's where the system is critically important. It's akin to if we're going to go out and buy a car, and Ford and Chevrolet and Toyota and all the OEMs, they all make fine cars. And they all have a base model, right? But then when you have that base model, you say, okay, what are my specific needs that I want in a car? And there are add-ons. It could be a different paint color, right? It could be that I want a moonroof in my car. It could be that I want cruise control on that car. And so you do add-ons along the way when you're making that decision. And that's what's been beneficial for us working with Schneider Electric, is that in our world, not only do we have add-ons along with the energy and the efficiency, et cetera, but the security, and you brought up security. In our world, especially in Las Vegas, security is critically important. Obviously, given the events of 10/1 and unfortunate incidents that happened. So we have to be really diligent in what we're trying to do. And that's where Schneider Electric comes in and plays a big role for us on an ongoing basis.
Awesome. Well, listen, thank you very, very much for spending time with us today. Most of all, thank you for being our customer and this great partnership that's ongoing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I think it's clear at this point in our presentation that we've kind of shown you how EcoStruxure makes people more productive and facilities more efficient. But what about deployment? What about cost? How do we make it better for integrators? Deployment time and cost are critical right now for everybody in that value chain. We've made it easier to install our products and our systems at scale. First of all, from an engineering standpoint, we're helping partners reduce that time by 30%. 30% through the use of pre-staged offline planning tools and best-in-class, already existing applications libraries and graphics libraries that are done in an engineering standard. On commissioning, we're giving our partners mobile apps so that they can reduce their commissioning time by 20%. We've introduced Enterprise Central, which is our aggregate platform. It'll let us deploy at a very large scale, very cost effectively. We've created a smart connector framework. This is what I wanted you to think about earlier. When we talk about work order systems, one of the groups in my team has developed an IBM Maximo work order connector, a smart connector, that lets us automate that work order component right from EcoStruxure. Whether it's connecting to a nurse call system at a hospital, or even at a hotel like this for a guest room management interface, you can now take that data to the cloud very securely, selectively, and really we're open at that point. We're open in a way that whatever you have now will utilize and leverage, and kind of we have connectivity beyond limit. EcoStruxure's architecture you've already seen. I'm not going to cover this. I'm getting my evil eye here for marketing. So 2018 was great. It was a busy year. We enhanced our offering with our new smart IP controllers, the IP-based field bus controllers that are across the hall if you haven't seen them. We released EcoStruxure Building 2.0, which is our next version of our open innovation platform. And then we also released Building Advisor, which we have discussed several times. Don't forget to talk to the handsome guy in the back, if you can find him, Justin Lavoie, about tapping into those diamonds and gold. Lastly, looking forward to 2019, it's going to be a really exciting year. Some things I can talk about, some things I can't. What I can say is that we will announce our next generation connected room solution that's also in the hub. We will ensure that EcoBuildings continues to be the most open and innovative. We'll be introducing the first version of machine learning It's a fancy way to say optimize data naming tags, but it'll start and give us the next lever to go forward with some really cool AI. We'll continue to deliver new products and solutions that make buildings more engaging, like Workplace Advisor that we've touched, and we'll also be launching a brand new enterprise security platform called Security Expert, which is also over at the Hub in a prelim version. Schneider is committed to helping build and design buildings that help people thrive, that are always simple, that are hyper efficient, and that make it more engaging and interactive for folks. My team and my passion is around helping put you guys, the customer and the partners, more hands-on. Get in the driver's seat in the cockpit behind the controls. I encourage you now, if you haven't been over to the Hub, please do so. I'm sure when you walk in the door there, you're going to be blown away at the scale and the connectivity of the entire EcoStruxure offer and how it can apply to you. Thank you very much for these 45 minutes. Sorry the end was a little bit rushed. I hope at least you take away just one pivotal idea that can figure out how we can apply hyper efficiency to your building and facility. Thank you very much.